as time allows. And so we're going to show the video that we have from earlier this morning while we wait for that press conference, which we were told should start in the next 2 minutes. However, at this point, we have not yet seen the feed coming in from the Austin Police Department. So here's what we know. There was a situation this morning where a suspect is now in custody, and that suspect is accused of shooting an Austin police officer in South Austin, and this happened near Barton Springs. Police say it happened around 4 in the morning near the pool's south gate and the Umlauf Sculpture Garden. This video that you're seeing here is from what was just a massive police response. SWAT was called out along with many other officers. You see the fire department was there as well. This started as a curfew check at Zilker Park. This is all information that we've received from sources. And so there was the curfew check where an officer saw a car that was parked there, ran the plates, and learned that that vehicle was stolen. At that point, the officer called in a tow truck, and there was this group of people that approached the officer, and that eventually escalated up to a shooting. So police have been investigating on AZ Morton Road and the surrounding neighborhoods ever since then. That officer shot, ended up going to the hospital. That officer had surgery. We were told it was successful, and the officer is now in stable condition. There is another person who was somehow connected to this who ended up in the hospital as well. However, at this point, Austin police are not telling us how that person is connected to this shooting. A manhunt ensued as a result of this. And so there was an initial shelter in place that went out for about a 2-mile radius of this incident. That initial shelter in place started at 5:25 in the morning. Police said they were looking for a white man who was last seen wearing a green shirt and tan pants. They said that that man was considered armed and dangerous. They asked people to call 911, not approach that man if they see him. This is where things got really confusing. Around 6:33, so roughly an hour later, there was another message that went out from the city telling people the shelter in place was lifted. They were all clear. However, that message was quickly followed by another saying, no, that's not the case. This is still a shelter in place situation. And it appears that that gave people the impression, at least momentarily, that they could go out. And word was slow to get back that the shelter in place was not actually lifted. As a result of this, though, Zilker and Barton Hills elementary schools went into what they call a secure. And so Austin ISD told us that police notified them about the shelter in place for those 2 schools, and that the families who had already left home were told that those schools would operate in this secure, meaning all activities continued inside the school, but no one was able to leave or enter the building. And they were asking families to essentially do what they felt was safest for their family. Then a couple hours later, a little more than an hour and 20 minutes ago at 8:38, police reported there was a person in custody. They believe that person was involved in the shooting with the officer. And finally, shortly before 9 in the morning, this shelter in place was lifted. So I know that was a lot of information to digest, but this was unfolding over hours this morning. And I want to remind our viewers that we are still waiting to hear from the Austin Police Department for that press conference to start. No indication that that has happened yet. And at this point, it is running behind. So that was the version in English of what happened. Esme, I want to toss it over to you so you can fill in our Spanish viewers on what happened.
Yes, ahora vamos a decir toda esa información, pero en español, para nuestra audiencia de habla hispana. Un sospechoso ha sido detenido en relación con el tiroteo de un agente de policía en el sur de Austin, cerca de Barton Springs. La policía ha estado investigando el lugar de los hechos desde las 4 de la madrugada. El incidente se produjo cerca de la calle AZ Morton en el bloque número 700. Un agente de la policía de Austin resultó herido de bala y otra persona también resultó herida. Aunque por el momento no se han revelado los detalles de sus lesiones, ambas personas están recibiendo atención médica en un hospital local. La policía de Austin ha informado de que todo comenzó cuando un agente estaba vigilando el parque Zilker para comprobar y se encontró con un vehículo robado. Confirmó que el vehículo era robado y se esperó a que el vehículo fuera retirado por la grúa. Cuando varias personas se acercaron a la gente, la situación se tensó y se produjo un tiroteo. A las 5:30 de la mañana se ordenó el refugio inicial en el lugar para todas las personas en un radio de 2 millas de la zona. La policía sigue buscando a un hombre blanco que, según se informa, vestía una camisa verde y pantalones de color beige y se dice que puede estar armado y ser peligroso. La policía pide a cualquier persona que vea a este individuo que no se acerque a él y llame inmediatamente al 911. Las escuelas afectadas por este incidente fueron Zilker y Barton Hills Elementary. Ambas escuelas fueron puestas en estado de seguridad y se recomendó a los padres que aún no habían dejado sus hijos en la escuela que tomaran decisiones de seguridad. El refugio en el lugar se levantó poco antes de las 9 de la mañana hoy y la policía de APD tiene previsto celebrar próximamente una rueda de prensa para dar más detalles sobre el incidente y eso pasará en algunos momentos. Solo estamos esperando que esa foto de nuestros fotógrafos está listo para empezar con eso. Tom.
All right. The other thing that I wanted to talk to about this, as we continue to wait for the Austin Police Department to bring this up, is that with this confusion over whether or not the schools were open, if it was safe to walk around the neighborhoods, there were a lot of families who ended up going to school. In some cases, they were walking or riding their bikes to school. And some of those families have reached out to KXAN just to express what this was like. And so you got the sense from talking with these families, and they told KXAN's Brianna Hollis, our crime reporter, that they were frustrated with the communication and that they were angry and felt like it was unacceptable that they were walking and taking their kids to school when there was, this a manhunt underway from the Austin Police Department in their neighborhood that they potentially didn't know about or that they thought was already over. And was safe to proceed with. So that is something that we're following up on right now. I know KXAN Brianna Hollis has talked with those parents. She's scheduling some of the interviews. Again, we are waiting from Barrett Tryon is our reporter who is at the Austin Police Headquarters. That press conference that was scheduled to start at 10 this morning, we're now being told, and I'm just looking at my notes as this is coming in, that it's going to start around 10:10.
It looks like that picture is up right now, but they're not in front of the podium yet.
Okay. So Barrett's telling us that this press conference, they got a 5-minute warning right at 10:04. So it looks like at 10:09, that's when we can expect to hear from Austin Police, get an update. Interestingly, I know that Brianna Hollis also had an interview scheduled with the police chief before this incident happened.
Yeah.
And we are expecting the police chief, Lisa Davis, to be the one who will address the cameras and walk us through exactly what happened.
Tom, before we start listening into this press conference, can you kind of remind us what alerts these parents were given at the time of the incident or from then to when they found the suspect?
Yeah, and it's hard to know if these messages and these calls that went out overnight, the initial ones that went out at 5:30, what we don't yet know if those were targeted just to that neighborhood or if they
or schools.
Well, the first message came from the city, and so it wasn't clear if it was just for people who live there or if it went citywide, avoid the area. But I had reached out to the Austin School District. I used to be an education reporter. And so I reached out to my contacts there and said, what's the messaging going out to parents right now? And at 6:30, there was some confusion. Initially, I was told from the school district, hey, the police department is telling us all clear, good to go to school, not putting out any alerts. And so you think about that, that is time that was wasted where that was an incorrect message. And then later I got a message from that same spokesperson who said, no, the message that went out to schools, and I'm going to flip over my notes because I
Read
wrote
the
it down.
message.
Yeah, I wrote it down word for word. Austin police have notified us that the shelter in place for Zilker and Barton Hills neighborhood is still in effect. Families who have not yet left home are encouraged to make the best decision for their families. These schools will operate on a secure until further notice. And then they explain, during a secure, all activities continue inside, but no one may leave or enter school buildings. Any students arriving late will be safely escorted inside. So that was that was some of the confusion that went out to parents, and and they didn't, no mention when you're reading that. At no point does it say there's a manhunt for someone who shot, but who's accused of shooting a police officer.
Yeah, even some of our employees here on their way home sent in videos of all the police presence in that area, the traffic backed up. And it wasn't just parents dropping off their children at school that were worried. It was also those, like I heard a couple of us talking about people walking their dogs, going for jogs. All of those individuals were also at risk.
Exactly. So again, just to recap, right now it is 10:09. This is the time that we initially were told, the Austin Police Department, or not initially, that's the time that we were given as when this is expected to start. You can see as we take that picture full here that has not yet happened. We do know that, local media from around Central Texas is staging here, and we will carry this for you as it becomes available. But you made a good point, Esme, just that it wasn't just people walking their kids to school, although, maybe it makes sense why that's the focus, because you have these, little kids.
It was a school day.
Exactly. It was a school day who are out there, to two different elementary schools, both Zilker and Barton Hills, that, hopefully are with their parents, but not necessarily the case if they live close enough. So clearly cause for concern there. Again, it is the police chief, Lisa Davis, who we are expecting to hear from. But as you look over this video, those are SWAT team members who were involved in this search, and it's such a busy area too. This is South Austin, right near Barton Springs Pool. AZ Morton Drive, if you're familiar, is sort of on that west and south side of Barton Springs Pool. So there's people who exercise. It's a super busy spot and popular spot for exercising early in the morning. Yeah,
walking for a coffee.
Exactly. I mean, and even walking down to the pool to go for a swim. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, Zilker Park, which is the other spot where, it was a parking lot there where we were told this initially happened. It is the gem of the Austin Park system, which is just as busy, even at 4 a.m, which is when we were told this happened. There are still people out and about. Austin is a city that enjoys, late night activities. And it's also a city where there's a lot of early birds and early risers who like to get out and about. And so I think that some of the questions that we can expect to hear from this press conference were what typically happens is the police chief will lay out sort of a timeline of events where she explains what they knew, when they knew it, how this all unfolded, have these suspects who are in custody, what charges are there? Is it just one suspect? Is it multiple suspects? We're still waiting to learn who this other person who went to the hospital, how they're connected to all of this. So hopefully that's explained in that initial statement from the police chief. But then after that, I do expect, and I'm getting the impression from our reporter and from hearing from other reporters who are covering this, that you really can expect some questions about how the public was notified, about the safety concerns, when they were notified, and if the messaging caused some confusion.
Yeah. For anyone just joining us, we do have some breaking news coming to us from South Austin. A suspect is in custody in connection to a shooting near Barton Springs. We are waiting for this press conference that APD is supposed to hold in just a few minutes to start up so that we can listen into that and then brief you all when that press conference is over.
Yeah, and Esme, if you're able, I would love to just keep that podium shot up too,
Yeah.
so that we know just yeah, right when they walk out, we will take it. This is their briefing room where they do a lot of their interviews and you know, pretty standard procedure for when they give these updates. We have, you know, with major events like this, sometimes there are these you know, Austin police spokespeople who will give the interviews if it's more of a you know, a minor event or something that had occurred in the past, and they'll give an update. They'll even have the detectives speak. But ever since the police chief, Lisa Davis, took over, she has been the one who typically speaks to these major events. And so it looks like we finally have somebody walking out. I don't know if we're able to turn up the microphone just to hear what she's saying right now.
Regarding the officer-involved shooting that took place this morning in the 700 block of AZ Morton Road. I do want to send a few thank yous prior to Chief coming in. We want to thank Chewy's Restaurant for opening up early this morning and providing us access to restrooms and to their building. We also want to thank our Dale Seaton Medical Center for the services that they provided to our officer and the other individual that was shot. AISD Police, Office of Police Oversight, our city legal team, Travis County Sheriff's Office, the Austin Fire Department, Austin Travis County EMS, Department of Public Safety, and our forensics unit, along with our victim services unit. So those are all the individuals that we do want to thank that were out there this morning for all of this. Shortly, Chief will be walking into the room. She will be providing initial preliminary information regarding what took place this morning. Joining her will be Gail McGant from the Office of Police Oversight and Chief Sneed from the Austin Police Department. I'm sorry, AISD Police Department. So if you guys will just stand by, we'll get started here shortly. And she will take a few questions, but our goal is to have, just like with any other officer-involved shooting, our goal is to have the critical incident briefing probably Friday or Saturday. So we'll get a more definite timeline for you guys, but just know that additional information will be provided at that point. All right? Thank you.
All right, so you heard that information there that we are expecting to hear from the chief. It sounds like some others are going to be speaking as well. But they said that they're planning to take a couple of questions. However, they really said it's Friday or Saturday that you can expect more information. So this is the police chief, Lisa Davis. Let's listen in.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for coming. This has been a sad morning. It's been a difficult time for sure. I am happy to report that our officer is doing. It is every chief's nightmare to hear that one of their officers has been shot, and I certainly got that feeling this morning when I learned of this. But he is not only a hero, he is very brave, and he did an outstanding job. And I want to say again how thankful I am for him being okay. And again, he's in stable condition. So I want to talk about how this all occurred, the initial contact. Our officer, along with a few others, was doing a park curfew in Zilker Park. They came upon a car that was stolen, reported stolen. The officer at that point called for a tow to come to the park, and the other officers left the scene to go to other parts of the park to see if there were any other curfew violators in the park. At this time, the tow company arrived, and the officer was assisting with that, doing his paperwork, and saw two individuals start to exit from the lining of the trees. He saw them, gave them commands to come toward him. As he's giving those commands, the female was in front of the male. The male was behind, I would say, looking from the video, about 5 to 6 feet maybe. At that point, the officer, the male seems to be hiding something in his hands. The officer gives commands, show me your hands, let me see your hands. At that point, the male suspect brought up his gun, fired, and struck the female in the back of the head. At that point, he continued to fire, striking our officer. At that point, our officer was able to pull his weapon and return fire. The officer, at that point, we did not know whether the suspect had been struck by the officer's bullets as he ran into some brush, and we could not see from his body-worn camera. One of the officers that was working the detail came back and actually drove him to the hospital in his own car, while the other officer stayed with the female and called for EMS to come. Officers got to the hospital, and he was seen and rushed into surgery right away, and again, he's in stable condition. I think it's important to know, too, at that point, immediately after that, we didn't have a suspect in custody. SWAT arrived, 5 canine officers arrived with their dogs. Air 1 was up. There was a huge hunt on for this suspect within that wood. And you think about the area and how large that area is. They did a fantastic job. At that point, a 911 suspicious call person came out from AISD Sergeant, basically seeing a suspicious person. Again, AISD, this is a school that's very close. They had a huge police presence at the school. One of the sergeants there, at that point, I think all the kids were brought into the school had started, and they saw a suspicious person. He called it out, went to approach him, and he took off running. At that point, our officers came, started chasing the suspect. He then ran into the Barton Hills community and ran into a house. At that point, he was shot by the owner of that home. He is in stable condition. I believe he was shot in the arm and in the leg. And I know when you talk about putting these systems in place, we originally, when SWAT arrived, we put a shelter in place, and that was put out on the warncentraltexas.org. And that shelter in place was in effect, I believe, for about 50 minutes. And then it was changed from shelter in place to avoid the area. Now, listen, I have serious concerns about why that happened myself. And I know there's questions about that, and I will get to the bottom of why that happened and ensure that there's processes in place to ensure that it does not happen again. So that never should have been changed. But I can tell you this. The homeowner, who is here, I saw him on my way up the elevator, and he stopped me, and he said, I want to tell you that shelter in place saved my life. It saved our family. Because of that, I prepared. And so I think it's important that when you look at what this is capable of doing, it does save lives. But again, why was it changed to avoid the area? And that's for cars. A shelter in place is there is something going, something active, and it gives people that mindset of let me prepare for this. But a avoid the area is simply heavy police presence, don't drive in this area. And so I am absolutely going to get to the bottom of why that occurred. And again, ensure that we have processes in place so it does not happen again. And again, I encourage our community to sign up for warncentraltexas.org. I think it has proven how effective that is, and I want everyone in this city to stay safe and sign up for that. I think that just proves how effective that is. I think I'll take a couple questions at this time.
What's the status of the female?
The female was shot. I believe she is still, I don't think we're going to have a positive outcome for her. It is not looking great for her, but she has not been pronounced at this time.
When it comes to those alerts, they come here from the department. Where are they sent from, and how does that work? And talk a little bit about that mixed messaging too, because you have an alert that says clear the area, but we're still tweeting out that there's a shelter in place. Just talk a little bit.
Yeah, I will talk about it, and I think it's important to note too. This is preliminary information. In 72 hours by Friday, we'll have another press conference here and a briefing, and I will have more information on that. What I do know is that it was changed. I want to get to the bottom of why it was changed, how it was changed, how it happened, and again, those processes in place to ensure that it does not happen again. So I am just as curious as you.
Chief Davis or maybe Chief Sneed, could either of you speak about the confusion, I guess, for parents? Because I understand that maybe like parents who were confused about that
Sure.
notification being changed.
Did you want to come?
Having their kids go to school.
Good morning. Wayne Sneed, Chief of Police with Austin ISD Police Department. Listen, these situations are very dynamic, right? They're constantly changing, they're constantly moving. Information is constantly changing, information is constantly moving. And so what we try to do is ensure that the decisions that we're making when it comes to our standard response protocols, that's our secures, our lockdowns, holes, things along those lines, that we're using the most informed decision that we can to keep our community, our campus community, our staff, and our students safe. So we're deriving it based on information either we're receiving sometimes from the media, sometimes it may be from one of our partners, or it may be from one of our students on campus, or one of our parents. And so when we're doing this, obviously, we're trying to use the best judgment that we can under those circumstances.
And then Chief Sneed, the actions by that sergeant on that campus possibly kept kids safe from the suspect entering the school. What can you say about his actions and how he performed?
I go along with, obviously, him being able to recognize that I've got someone who matches the description and putting that information out, broadcasting it with our, as I say, our partners. We work very closely on a daily basis. Our schools do not live in silos. They're in communities, right? And so things happen in and around our communities. And so with our partnerships and the strong partnerships that we've had, he was able to get on the radio, communicate that information to the Austin Police Department dispatch and officers. They were able to get there promptly, which probably saved other people's lives.
Can you tell us a little bit about the suspect? Do we know who he is, what his background is, that sort of thing?
That is something, Meredith, that we'll have on Friday for you. At this point, we still have families to notify. We have other things to do here on the investigation. But they were younger. They were both younger, male and female whites, born in the early 90s. So, dealing with some relatively young people. But you look at the whole totality of everything. It's a horrible situation. Again, I'm grateful that our officer's okay and that we have a homeowner who defended himself and defended his home. And there's nothing more to say there.
Last question.
Can you tell us anything about the officer? How long has he been with the department?
We'll have that on Friday, but I believe he's been around 5 years. But just a fantastic job. And you'll see on Friday when we show the video, his body-worn camera, again, just very calmly coming on, talking about that he had been hit. And again, these are actions of a hero who did a fantastic job and just doing his work. I'm sorry?
Where?
He-
Where was he hit?
I think we'll talk about that on Friday as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We've been listening to this press conference with the Austin Police Department. Both the Austin Police Chief Lisa Davis and the Austin ISD Police Chief Wayne Sneed. So there was a lot that they revealed that we didn't necessarily have confirmed here at KXAN. We had heard about some of this. None of it was confirmed. The thing that really stood out to me is just the series of events that happened after this suspect fled from Zilker Park. We were told that he approached a school campus and that it was an Austin ISD officer who reported seeing that suspicious person nearby, and that the man took off running into the Barton Hills community and into a home there. She also said that that homeowner had prepared for this. She didn't say how, but you can sort of read between the lines, after getting a shelter-in-place notice, and that homeowner shot the suspect. That suspect now in the hospital and stable, but the woman that he was with, it sounds like, may not make it from the way that the police chief described it. Lisa Davis saying that this went down where they were trying to tow a car that had been reported as stolen, and that officer who'd been with the force for around 5 years, she said, she also described him as a hero and brave, said that this man and woman started to approach him as the car was being towed, the woman in front of the man, and that the shooter initially hit the woman in the back of her head before shooting and hitting the officer as well. We also learned that she acknowledged that the timing of these alerts and how the alerts went out was very confusing. She said that initially there was the shelter in place that went out, and that was followed by what was just called an avoid the area alert for vehicles. And there's a big difference there, because if you're being told to shelter in your home versus just don't drive through it. You may think that you are safe to go outside. She said that was a mistake, and she's going to get to the bottom of it. But she did remind viewers and the community that this actually those alerts did have the positive outcome. This warncentraltexas.org is how you sign up for those alerts. And she said that is the reason the homeowner was armed and prepared when that suspect broke into his home or came into his home. Esme, that is the wrap as best as I can from what I've gathered. I know you want to repeat some of this information because none of that was in Spanish, but to our Hispanic and Spanish-speaking viewers.
Yeah, I'll do that right now. Ya les explicamos lo que pasó y lo que sabíamos de esta mañana, pero les voy a dar más información sobre lo que hablaron en esta conferencia de prensa. La chief de policía, Lisa Davis, nos dijo que el oficial, mientras estaba haciendo su vigilancia del parque Zilker, encontró un vehículo que era robado y lo documentó y estaba esperando a que la guía recogía el vehículo, pero el oficial vio a dos individuos detrás de un árbol, los vio y les ordenó que se acercaran más acerca de él, y en ese momento el sospechoso que era hombre salió con una pistola y disparó a otra sospechosa detrás de su cabeza enfrente de él y luego disparó al oficial. Después de eso, el oficial fue llevado al hospital para sus lesiones. Y de allí el sospechoso huyó hacia un arbustal. El agente también resultó herido y fue transportado al hospital local donde fue operado esa mañana. En ese momento los agentes comenzaron la búsqueda del sospechoso que huyó hacia el arbustal. Se impuso el confinamiento en las escuelas y los agentes encontraron al sospechoso que había huido a la comunidad cercana de Barton Hills. El sospechoso entró en una casa y el propietario disparó al sospechoso en esa casa, tras lo cual los agentes lo detuvieron. La jefa de policía, Lisa Davis, dijo que era consciente de la falta de comunicación, pero afirma que la orden de permanecer en el lugar fue crucial y, de hecho, ayudó al propietario a estar preparado. Según ella, el propietario le comentó que si no hubiera sido por la alerta, no habría estado preparado para hacer lo que hizo. Hasta el momento, solo sabemos que los dos sospechosos eran dos individuos blancos jóvenes, un hombre y una muchacha. Todos esos detalles de por qué lo hicieron, qué pasó, quién era la gente, va a salir el viernes. Los agentes de policía nos van a decir todo eso el viernes, pero si quieres inscribirte para estas alertas, puedes visitar la página web warncentraltexas.org y eso también lo tendremos en nuestra página de web KXAN.com. Tom?
All right, well, you've been listening to our briefing here on KXAN Plus. Appreciate you taking the time to be with us. We are going to have more, including from our reporter Barrett Tryon, who was there in the briefing room with both the Austin ISD and Austin Police Chief. That will start at 11 over on KXAN. Until then, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Tom.